The Trump meme coin continues to go down while the market itself tends to be recovering. What's going on? Let's have a look at some data most people aren't considering. Let's look at Trump's performance relative to other altcoins. Let's have a look at whether or not it makes sense to buy this bottom. We are currently at $24.07. And in the last week, we went down by 16%. Official Trump was one of the worst performing cryptocurrencies in the last week. There was only Pudgy Penguins, Fartcoin and Virtual Protocol that did worse. But then on the other hand, we did have some very nice performers. Mantra, for example, we talked about this several times on this channel. Onyx Coin as well, we talked about this last week as well. And then we had BitTensor and Jasmicoin. So the market as a whole is somewhat mixed, but Trump is doing worse. What we've got over here is the Trump long-term price chart. And this is something you've very likely seen before. We peaked out at $74, went down since then by 67%. All profits were made in the first 15 hours after launch. Now the official Trump meme coin was launched on the Solana chain, and so there is some liquidity that's denominated in SOL. In other words, when Solana goes down, then Trump goes down with it, and that's part of the price decline. Because when we look at Trump denominated in SOL, it's not that great either, but the decline was quote-unquote only 60% relatively speaking. It's a very similar decline since the Trump token launched. The altcoins as a fraction of all of crypto didn't actually move that much. They went down slightly. And so clearly we can't say that the Trump token went down because all of crypto went down. All of crypto actually held up comparatively well. Now I've made several videos on the Trump token on this channel. And the very first one was published over here when we're still growing at $13. Again, crypto is all about being early. And since then we see how interest is going down. In the last 24 hours, we've only seen 500 wallets transacting with Trump on the Solana chain. There are still people searching for the Trump token. So in the last 48 hours, not 24, we've seen more than 6,000 people hitting that recent video. It is an average performing video though. The very first video made more than 8 times the average video. So interest is declining. It's not zero, but it's declining. Now there are two interesting effects here. Of course, when you're early, you always tend to make money. And this was a launch that favored the people that are already crypto native. And it was not that great of a launch for the people that were pretty late to the party, that just bought the token via credit card. But besides that, besides being early and being well informed, this was also a transfer towards Asia. In other words, most Americans lost money. Most people in Asia won money simply because of the time when the token was launched. Have a look at this. This is the price performance of Bitcoin segregated by trading hours. So we're looking at US trading hours in blue, Europe trading hours in purple, and Asia Pacific trading hours in yellow. So we can see it really doesn't matter that much for Bitcoin at what time of the day you're buying. The market is pretty efficient. But now have a look at the Trump coin. Asia Pacific is in yellow because the people that woke up early in Asia, they bought the Trump token while the US and Europe was mainly sleeping. And since then, most of the performance was kept. Now compare this with Europe. Europe initially made some money, but then lost. And then have a look at the US. The US woke up when the Trump coin already saw all of its adoption, and they lost pretty much all of the money. So a transfer from crypto beginners to crypto pros, and also a transfer from people in the US to people in Asia. Isn't that fascinating? We can also have a look at this by hour of the day. And the hour where Trump lost the most, those are by the way UTC time zone numbers, that's also the hour where YouTube videos tend to get most views. In other words, when there's a lot of retail attention, then the market makers and the whales that bought in early, they sell off. And when the US is sleeping, then the market makers accumulate it. This is not what we see for Bitcoin or for other more efficient markets, right? We only see this for very inefficient markets, for markets that are dominated by retail demand. And so on the left side, we see the number of wallets that hold the Trump token on Solana. It's currently at 680,000. It tends to trend down, not as quickly anymore as in the past, but still it trends to go down. In the middle, we see the number of wallets that have at least 40 tokens. So at the current price, that's $1,000 worth of the token. A similar effect, but those larger wallets took profit quicker. And on the right side, we've got a minimum holding of 400 tokens. So that's now $10,000 worth of the token. Also a sharp sell-off after the initial acquisition. And that sell-off tended to be the strongest, right? So the larger the wallet, the quicker the wallet tended to take profit. So it's a small retail guy that's getting burned here yet again, especially the retail guy in the US. We can go 2 more orders of magnitude up. So it's $1 million worth of the token on the left. And then when we go into the very large wallet, so 100 million or 1 billion worth of the token, then we are in centralized exchange and market maker territory. We can also see how the Melania token got absolutely crushed. In the last 24 hours, we have only seen 15 wallets that bought the token. At $1.79, nobody wants to buy Melania anymore, but everybody wanted to buy at $13. Those are, by the way, on-chain metrics, right? We don't know what's going on in the centralized exchanges. But still, if the centralized exchanges were now to manipulate Melania, there would be very few people that make money from this. In other words, there is a chance. Here's the thing, the market isn't expanding as quickly anymore as it used to, right? With the Trump push, now the question is what can come that's even larger than that, that pushes prices even higher. And because of that, because it's more and more player versus player, even though the market in aggregate might be somewhat balanced, it's still just a few assets that outperform everything. Have a look at this picture. The tokens that are between 101 and 200 in terms of market cap, they in the last month went pretty much plus minus zero, right? They gained slightly. But when we look at this picture here, that's just because there are a few massive outliers. And the question really is, when we look at 100 tokens, how likely is it that we are going to pick Toshi or the Swift coin or AIC? Especially when we hold a diversified portfolio and we have, say, 5 or 10 altcoins, the likelihood is pretty high that that altcoin portfolio is going to underperform. Because if you held AI16Z and you made a minus 76% loss, or you held Turbo and you lost 40%, or you held Memecoin or Mu and you're down more than 30%, it's very hard to still have positive performance. And I'm a fan of trying to get the odds in our favor, right? It's possible to pick the winners if we are very, very early and if we adopt something like Trump in the earliest hours and if you are one of the top traders, that is possible. But if you don't have time to watch the crypto markets 24/7 or if you're not based in Asia, then it's very, very hard to get those winners all the time. And so why not go the easy route? Why not simply bet on falling prices? If most altcoins do worse than Bitcoin most of the time, and if there's just a few assets that outperform that massively, then we can just pick a random asset over here and we are very likely going to make money in the next month. We just have to make sure that we don't fall for those few tokens that are discussed everywhere. When we bet on falling prices of Chili's or of Safe or of DYDX, then that's a comparatively safe bet. It's definitely still risky because this is the crypto market and the crypto market does get manipulated, but it's less risky than trying to find the needle in the haystack. And there are some tokens that underperform more consistently than others. For example, this one over here, Balancer. I started shorting Balancer in the middle of 2022. I went on and off about that position. Sometimes I was short, sometimes I was out of the market taking profit. But since that point in time, Balancer underperformed Ethereum by more than 80%. So it's not just that most altcoins do worse than Bitcoin. It's also that some of those altcoins underperform most of the time. And so I've made several videos on this topic. It's a comparatively advanced topic because it's also easy to get burnt with shorts. That's why most retail investors don't get involved in this. But there are premium tutorials, how to win in bear markets by shorting altcoins. It's 42 minutes in length. Then there's another video, gaining from relative valuations. Then there's another one, shorting optimism relative to Bitcoin. This has been published quite a while ago. This, by the way, is now optimism relative to Bitcoin. So this was a good position. And the reason why most altcoins do worse than Bitcoin is tokenomics, as in more and more tokens get issued over time. And if the demand cannot keep up with the token issuance, then the price has to underperform. underperform the rest. Now, this is not a good strategy during a massive bull run, but it is a good strategy during a bear market, of course, but also during sideways movement. Because again, even during a sideways movement, money flows just into a very few basket of altcoins. Most alts do worse. And so this is all part of the premium membership of this channel. Premium is not just about shorting, it's also about on-chain analytics. It's also about portfolio management and risk mitigation. There's more than 100 tutorial videos in total in premium. Now, this is not a topic to make a 10x next week, but it is a topic to outperform steadily and slowly. And if you can only outperform, say, by 30 percentage points per year, and Bitcoin itself already grows by 30% per year, which I believe is somewhat of a conservative bet. Then if we do this over 4 years, and again, we don't have to trade very actively, we can 8x our capital. Now, if you have just a few $100s of invest, then an 8x within 4 years doesn't really sound that great. And then by all means, feel free to gamble with that money, right? Because you can also recoup the money very quickly just by working more, just by saving more. But if you've got already several years of your income saved up, or if you've got $10,000, $50,000, if you have more money, then an 8x does matter, right? 10K becomes 80K in a relatively okay-ish time period. And so I actually find it easier to make money in bear markets and during times like this. Again, because we don't have to pick the winners. We can simply have a diversified portfolio of short positions. Again, because most altcoins underperform Bitcoin most of the time. If you own a lot of altcoins and you hold them over 10 years, you're probably not going to do that well. Because have a look at the top tokens 10 years ago. How many of them do you really recognize? Paycoin, BitShares, MadeSafeCoin, NXT. Yes, Stellar is still around, Dogecoin is still around, but where is Peercoin, Counterparty? Dash also underperformed Bitcoin quite a lot, so did Namecoin. So really, the crypto markets are not venture capital markets, right? The crypto markets are very much player versus player, and it's better to simply bet on the vast majority doing worse most of the time. Not in a bull market, but most of the time. And I believe currently this does apply. Currently we are in most of the times. The crypto valuations are comparatively high. A lot of people made profit and took profit at 100K. And so if your portfolio is large enough, it's not just a few $100s, but it's maybe in the $10,000 and above, then feel free to check out the premium membership. It's currently $165 per month. There's also a 1-week money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, simply message me within the first week and I'll refund you 100%. There's really zero risk for you. Now, does it make sense to buy the Trump token at those current levels? It is somewhat risky, right? The market makers own a lot of the supply. They're currently offloading some of that supply, and likely at some point they want to increase the volatility again, because higher volatility means more attention, means potentially elevated prices, more retail demand, and then they can offload that Trump for higher prices. The issue is, of course, to find that potential entrance, right? One could simply buy several times, try to dollar cost average in, lowering the average purchase price, and then sell with the next rally. But it is somewhat risky. I can sleep better simply by shorting altcoins. Now, my preference is to short altcoins where there are less eyes on the token. So I want to short altcoins nobody is looking at, where there's simply bad tokenomics. Yes, the Trump token also has bad tokenomics, but those tokens get unlocked 3 months after the launch. Something like a balancer short, in my opinion, is the better bet, right? A token that has very little attention, that has an inflating supply where nobody is buying either. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you in the next video, or see you in premium. Cheers.